I've said many times on this channel that this is my first time really seriously trying to look at the NFL draft and the Ravens prospects or what they might do. This video is going to be a huge departure from the types of videos I've tried to produce and even ones that I think most people do. In this scenario, what I have done is take certain players off the board, intentionally not draft any quarterbacks in the top 13, and then provide a list of players that are available and ask Ravens fans what they would like to do. Now, there will be one big name that I have left out there for someone to just straight draft at 14, and I would totally understand if that's what people chose to do. You'll be able to figure it out in a moment when I show you the initial 13 picks. So in a moment here, I'm going to ask you what would you do? What would you do if these are the players who are gone after 13 picks? And don't get caught up with where guys got drafted. There might be some guys who would move up or down certain positions. Don't believe all that stuff about Kayvon Thibodeaux being available at 14. I don't believe it. I don't know where that stuff is coming from. I just think it's obfuscation at this point. But in any case, let's check it out. So here's how the draft breaks down Thursday night. Let's just say this is what occurs, and this is who the Ravens have watched go off the board. So there's no Jameson Williams or Drake London to take. So those of us that have talked about, receiver being the pick at 14 and then trying to trade back to 32 or 34, that's not possible here, obviously. There's other receivers that are still on the board, and you'll see those pictures in a moment, or you'll see that pick in a moment of the guys who are available. But Ahmad Gardner's gone. Derek Stingley's gone. There's still Trent McDuffie out there. There's still Andrew Booth, so you'll see those in a moment. The top 3 tackles are gone. So no Charles Cross pick is available, unfortunately. George Karlaftis is already off the board. Jordan Davis is already off the board. So the Ravens are faced with this situation. This will be worst case scenario in a lot of ways, if you ask me. And obviously at this point you figured out the one big name that I've left off is Jermaine Johnson. Not saying that I don't think he belongs in this group, because I think he does. I think it's quite likely that he's not there at 14. But the more quarterbacks that are taken in the top 13, obviously, means that one of these 13 players and or Jermaine Davis survives to 14 for the Ravens to possibly take. So maybe I should have included Jermaine Johnson here, but I did not do so, and that was intentional. Because what I want to see is if you're of the mindset that the Ravens' largest need is edge defender, because I'll be honest with you, personally I do not think it is. I think the Ravens' needs at DB and offensive line supersede the need at edge defender, and I really think that kind of speaks to the status of the roster. And I'm not being overly critical, I don't think, of Eric DeCosta and Ozzie Newsome, who I guess is still involved to a large extent, and other people. But I think if you want to get really serious about having a defense and an offensive line that is capable of doing what you want them to do, that those are the 3 positions that have a big need. Yeah, is there a need at inside linebacker eventually? Yes. Personally, I think Josh Bynes is a 1-year stopgap or a 1-year solution to that problem. You may have a different opinion, but be that as it may, we have a situation here where Jermaine Johnson will be available, and the other players that will be available you'll see in a moment. What do you do as a Ravens GM? If you were the Ravens GM, so what I want you to do is obviously put it in the comment section. But before you do so, I want to preface this a little bit, if you may. I don't want to get caught up in necessarily individual players. I think that there's groups of players who have somewhat similar ability, and even among those groups, there's guys who have vastly different levels of projection in terms of, people use the phrase ceiling and floor. I get that. Potential is another way to describe that. So don't get caught up in individual players unless you want to just say, hey, I'm going to take Jermaine Johnson at 14, and then we'll deal with the rest of the stuff later. But I'm kind of looking for more than that. I'm kind of looking for more than just 14. What I'm asking you is, as a Ravens fan, what would you like to see the strategy be? Pick at 14 and then pick at 45, and then go ahead and put the players in there. 14 Jermaine Johnson, 45 Roger McCreary. That's great, awesome. But I'd like you to also include, if you are interested, in how you would go about acquiring, or who you would like to move to gain another pick if you so choose. To me, I think Dax Hill or Jalen Petre are guys that we should look at trying to get. They're not going to be there at 45, obviously. Moving up to 28 to 32 or 34 range is something that in my mind makes sense. There's tons of possibilities out there, and the one thing that I've begun to kind of realize very very sharply is that 14 is going to be a very sought after pick, in my opinion, because the Eagles and Saints are sitting there right after us. And I think that the chances of them taking a receiver, particularly if either Jamison Williams or Drake London is still available at 14, and there's a chance that they will be. Now, I've given you a specific scenario where they're off the board, obviously, but feel free to speak on that. If Drake London and or Jamison Williams is still available at 14, obviously Olave and Wilson are still there in both of those scenarios, the one I'm showing you and the one I'm talking about right now. The Saints, they could pick anybody. The Eagles, I think, are definitely going to pick a receiver among one of their two picks. Now, in my mind, if I was someone in the Eagles front office, I wouldn't go receiver with either of those picks. I would improve the defense immensely, if possible. So if you accept that 14 is going to be a sought-after pick for maybe some teams like the Cowboys, maybe some other teams, I've even heard that there's a possibility that one of the teams that picks ahead of us might try to trade back and get 14 again. I shouldn't say trade back. Might try to go ahead and select early and then move back into the first round at 14, which would be crazy. But in any case, what team would you like to target? What pick number would you like to move back to? Would it be Dallas? I think they're at 24. The Chiefs are at 29 and 30. I have no interest, me personally, in trading with the Chiefs and allowing them to get Olave, Wilson, London, or Jamison Williams. None. So where would you trade back if you're one of the trade back people? Where would you trade back, and with what team? And then who would you be targeting? Me personally, I'd like to try to avoid trading back with an AFC team. I don't want to see an AFC team be made stronger because the AFC is going to be a murderer's row anyway to deal with next year. Anyway, so let's look at the picks. What's your focus? Who are you taking at 14 if you're just going to stick and pick, so to say? And then how are you trading back? Who are you looking to target to trade back with if this group of players is available? Obviously, Jermaine Johnson's probably going to be the most popular choice. I wish I could create a poll in the comments section of this video. I can make a post on YouTube and do that, which I've done a couple of times before, obviously, to try to generate movement on my channel and people answering questions and getting interaction. Where do you go here? There's even some talk of the Ravens taking Dax Hill. I said a couple of months ago when I did videos for my old channel that I thought the Ravens would be more likely to take Dax Hill over a David Ojabo, being that Mike McDonald coached both of those guys last year at Michigan. I thought that the need for once we got rid of Tavon Young, the need for a Daxton Hill is far greater than the need for a David Ojabo. That's my opinion. I think the Ravens need another guy who can cover more than they need an edge defender of the caliber of a Jermaine Johnson. But you may disagree with me, and that's no problem. Put Jermaine Johnson in your vote. Do the Ravens look at Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd at inside linebacker? I personally don't think so. I like both of those guys. I prefer Devin Lloyd a little bit, but both of them are going to be good players depending on where they end up. But I think there's value at inside linebacker, and I think there's value at edge defender later on in the draft. I don't think that inside linebacker and edge defender is where we go at 14. It might be edge defender at 45, especially if the guy like Arnold Obekity is there. And obviously I have him on the screen here, but they're not taking him at 14. Kenyon Green at 14 is someone that I find very interesting because he has the ability to play guard and tackle. If you have not done so, go ahead and check out his play against Alabama this year. He played left tackle against Alabama and played quite well. I'm in the middle of a Twitter film study of that game for Kenyon Green. You will be impressed. Kenyon Green goes up against Will Anderson, who is the consensus number one pick for the 2023 NFL Draft. If Will Anderson was in this draft right here, I think he's probably getting picked in the top 5 to 7 picks. And Kenyon Green at left tackle goes against him and does a great job. I think Kenyon Green is a possibility at 14, guys, because of his ability to. He comes in and starts at left guard immediately if Ronnie Stanley's healthy. And if Ronnie Stanley is not healthy, Kenyon Green could be the guy who starts at left tackle, and then Ben Cleveland or Tyree Phillips starts at left guard. And the Ravens could get away with that until such time that Ronnie Stanley is healthy, if that ever occurs again. Hopefully it does, for our sake and for his. I think that's the appeal for Kenyon Green over a guy like Zion Johnson, who I personally think Zion Johnson is a stud, and I think Zion Johnson is being very underrated in this draft. Uh, in certain other drafts that weren't kind of like two drafts in one because of the pandemic situation, I think Zion Johnson could be a top 10 or 12 pick. Obviously, the guy that I haven't talked about at all on here, a couple of them, Trevor Penning. I do not hope that the Ravens select him at 14. I don't think that's a serious concern. If it is a serious concern, then we're all going to be pissed off. We really will be. If you take Trevor Penning, see, if Kenyon Green did not exist, and you were either drafting a guard or a tackle, and the Ravens wanted to take Trevor, let's say Jermaine Johnson's off the board. So my scenario has been altered here. And Trevor Penning is the guy there who's a possible swing tackle who can also play some guard. I wouldn't do that, me personally, but I would understand it. Okay, I get it. You're creating some insurance there for Ronnie Stanley, and you're getting us a guy who can play at two positions. But if that's the move at 14, and what I mean by that's the move is you're drafting someone who can play guard and tackle in the event that Ronnie Stanley isn't healthy yet, or that he's not, he's not healthy until week 6, then you take Kenyon Green. It's not even close. In my opinion, Kenyon Green is way better than Trevor Penning. He just is. And I'm not a Trevor Penning hater. Some of y'all are Trevor Penning haters. I'm not. But I don't think he's anywhere close to Kenyon Green. And as a guard, just a guard, let's just put a G under Trevor Penning's name here. Zion Johnson's better than Trevor Penning, in my opinion. That's just what I think. So if that's the move, then it's Kenyon Green. And for me personally, I'm not saying that's the one I do under this scenario that I have here. I will tell you up front now, I'm not taking Jermaine Johnson at 14 under this scenario that I presented you today. I'm probably not taking Andrew Booth, but I recognize that he's a really good player who I probably am going to regret not taking at 14. I'm probably a trade back guy if this is the scenario that occurs. Now, if Jameson Williams falls to 14, I take Jameson Williams. No question. And I've gone on record as saying if Drake London is there at 14, I might take a Drake London. And I did not list those two. I did not list wide receiver as being one of the 3 positions of need earlier. I listed edge defender, I listed corner, and offensive line or offensive tackle to be clear. But the potential of Jameson Williams and Drake London to impact the offense to me would be tremendous. And then I think you're looking at possibly using future assets to move back into that 30 range and maybe try to get a tackle. Kenyon Green or Daxton Hill would probably be a realistic option at 14 here, along with Jermaine Johnson. Prepare yourself for Kenyon Green to be the choice if some of these other guys are gone. But the trade back options are going to be plentiful for the Ravens at 14 because under this scenario or any scenario, because teams in the 20s and late teens are going to recognize that the Eagles and Saints are definite possibilities to take some of these receivers. And I know the Saints still have Michael Thomas. I get it. But there's going to be teams who want to jump in front of the Eagles and the Saints, and even the Chargers to a lesser extent. I certainly would not want to see a Drake London or someone like that end up on the Chargers with the talent that they've already acquired. So I think it's going to be an NFC team. If we trade back, it's going to be an NFC team that we trade back with. And if it's an AFC team, they're going to have to come correct with a huge haul. Meaning, if it is the Chiefs, I'm not just asking for 29 and 30. I'm asking for 29 and 30. I'm asking for one of those other later picks they've got, 3rd, 4th round, and then I'm asking for a 2nd or 3rd rounder in 2023, which they're going to say no to. But if that's who they want, if they want Jameson Williams and we're going to allow them to have him in the AFC, then we need to get something back that's a huge, huge haul. I think that might be the smart move, and I certainly don't mean to say that someone who doesn't want to trade back is not smart. I'm not insinuating that at all. But if there is a trade back offer from other teams, and there will be at 14, no matter the scenario, asking for a 2nd or 3rd round pick for next year, along with the return, is the smart play. Because you're kind of future-proofing your roster, and I know that it's a quarterback-heavy draft next year. There's going to be teams that are going to be trying to acquire picks. Getting as much capital as possible to use would be smart for the Ravens front office. And my final thought here, to be honest with you, is don't be surprised if the Ravens trade back, and then whatever picks they acquire, they utilize to to basically get 3 of the top 45 picks. I think that may be the goal, to be honest with you. So let's say that the Ravens trade back with the Cowboys and we move back to 24, and the Cowboys give us 24 and 56 and maybe a third rounder in 2023. Am I saying that that's likely to happen? Well, no, but the Cowboys are crazy and they do draft well as far as premium talent. Am I saying that it's realistic? I don't know, but let's just say that it happens. Ravens give up 14, we get 24, 56, and a 2023 third rounder, and maybe we give them one of our fourths this year. Okay, fine. I'm saying don't be surprised if the Ravens don't go ahead and draft at 24. Maybe we get Booth. Maybe Kenyon Green's still there, and the NFL is absolutely crazy and doesn't see what I see. Stacey Van Diver was the first person to mention Kenyon Green to me, and after I watched the Alabama game, I was shocked that he's not getting more notice and more publicity prior to this draft. But in any case, let's say we do that. Don't be surprised if the Ravens then try to use more draft capital to move back into that 30 to 35 range to then get a Daxton Hill or someone like that. And it would just depend on where the draft shakes out. If Daxton Hill doesn't get drafted by the Chiefs, so he makes it past, I think the Chiefs are 29 and 30. If he makes it past the Chiefs, somewhere in that range, don't be surprised if the Ravens go ahead and try to get Dax Hill. Of course, the Dax Hill could end up being drafted by the Bengals, right? The Texans are there. The Lions are there with 2 picks. I think it's entirely possible the Ravens trade back somewhere, let's call it 24, and then try to use that capital to move back into the 31, I should say, to 35 range to get a guy like Daxton Hill or Jalen Petre, and then go ahead and draft at 45. Let me know what you guys would like to do. I went on a little bit longer than I wanted to in terms of talking about and setting this scenario up. But what would you do if this is how it unfolds, in round 1, and the Ravens are faced with those choices I gave you at 14? How would you attack it? Would you just go ahead and draft at 14, Jermaine Johnson, Kenyon Green, Andrew Booth? Maybe you're a Trevor Penning guy, and you're willing to admit it. Do so at your own peril. All right. What would you guys do if this is the scenario and how it plays out on Thursday night?